the journey to uncover the truth about the death of America's wealthiest son. In the early 1960s, Harvard graduate Michael Rockefeller disappeared while attempting to escape from the Asmat Island off the coast of Papua New Guinea. His disappearance shook the entire United States. His name appeared in every newspaper, and even President Kennedy expressed condolences and affirmed that the government would spare no effort to find Michael. Michael Rockefeller was the son of Nelson Rockefeller, governor of New York, who later became the Vice President of the United States. More importantly, Michael was the heir apparent of the Rockefeller family, one of the wealthiest and most powerful dynasties in America, set to inherit a fortune worth $31.83 billion. The Golden Spoon Child. On February 20, 1957 in New York City, Nelson Rockefeller showcased a new form of art to the world. This ambitious 49-year-old man was the grandson of John D. Rockefeller, the founder of Standard Oil Company, and when Nelson was born, an event featured on the front page of the New York Times, John was one of the wealthiest men on the planet with a fortune of $900 million. True to the Rockefeller dynasty's legacy, Nelson went on to become the governor of New York, ran for president in 1960, and became vice president in 1974. In Nelson's four-story mansion in New York, right next to the Museum of Modern Art, founded by his mother, Abby Aldrich Rockefeller, guests flocked to admire the inaugural exhibition of the Primitive Art Museum. There were countless treasures that excited them, such as a carved prow from Easter Island, wooden masks from Nigeria, stone masks from the Maya, and fishing nets from an African tribe. That evening, Michael Rockefeller celebrated his 18th birthday, mesmerized by the beauty of the displayed artifacts. He resolved to seek out undiscovered artworks himself, intending to eventually donate them all to his father's museum. However, Michael's twin sister, Mary Rockefeller, always believed that her brother's passion for art began when Michael was very young. Just as Abby Rockefeller educated her son Nelson, Nelson also took his son to meet numerous art dealers every Saturday afternoon, and the young boy would eagerly watch his father rearrange the family's multi-million-dollar art collection. The contrasting hobby of the billionaire's son Michael was described by close friends as a quiet individual with an artistic soul. Following the family tradition, he attended Harvard University and graduated with honors in economics and history. However, he found himself torn between his family's expectations and his own desires. While Nelson wanted his son to work for the family business, learning the ropes to eventually take over the dynasty, with art being merely a leisure pursuit, Michael refused to heed his father's wishes. At that time, Michael had traveled to many places, including Venezuela and Japan, where there were artworks that his father Nelson greatly admired. Eventually, Michael decided to pursue his dream and at the same time, please his father by going to the most remote areas to bring back rare artifacts. At Harvard, he met filmmaker Robert Gardner, who specialized in making films about remote regions, and he applied to be a sound engineer for Robert's film crew. After graduation, he was brought into the family museum board by his father, but according to Carl, Michael outright refused to stay in New York and sat all day in the office to chair meetings and settle accounts. Instead, he began to contact Adrian Gerbrands, director of the National Museum of Ethnology in the Netherlands, in order to go practically to Asmat. Asmat is known as the territory of a predominantly hunter-gatherer ethnic group, but they can create very delicate carvings. For Michael, Asmat is the place he needs to go to start his collection. In 1960, the Dutch colonial government and missionaries had known about this island for nearly 10 years, but the majority of Asmat people had never seen a white person. With no information about the outside world, they believed that the lands beyond were inhabited by spirits. So when they saw white people stepping out of boats from across the ocean, the Asmat believed that these individuals were mystical beings. Therefore, Michael's appearance with the expedition both intrigued and frightened the local people. The Asmat did not show discomfort when being photographed, but they were adamant about not allowing white people to buy back the Bisji poles, intricately carved wooden poles that played a crucial role in local religious ceremonies. Michael was not discouraged because he had seen a new world in Asmat, vastly different from the familiar modern Western world, and he was determined to bring everything back to New York. The first expedition ended with limited success, but Michael was quite excited. Michael Rockefeller returned to Asmat on November 19, 1961, accompanied by government archaeologist Rene Wassing. As their boat approached Otsionep, a sudden storm arose, causing the boat to capsize. Despite being 12 km from shore, Michael remained confident that he could swim to safety. That day marked the last time Michael was seen. The Rockefeller family quickly received the devastating news, sparing no expense or connections in the search for their son. Ships, private planes, helicopters were all deployed to search for Michael. Mr. and Mrs. Rockefeller even utilized their Boeing 707 jet to fly directly to New Guinea in anticipation of news about their son, and they continuously held press conferences to provide updates on the search efforts. Despite the efforts of America's wealthiest family, Michael's body was never found. After 9 days, the Dutch government declared, "There is no longer hope of finding Michael Rockefeller alive." 2 weeks later, the Dutch authorities ceased the search, officially attributing the young man's untimely demise to drowning. The truth about the death. Michael's mysterious disappearance quickly became a phenomenon, with countless rumors starting to spread. Some hypothesized that he may have been eaten by sharks, while others suggested he might be living incognito somewhere in New Guinea, escaping the golden cage of his Rockefeller identity. The Rockefeller family swiftly appointed Nelson's eldest son, Rodman Rockefeller, as the heir and manager of the family's vast financial assets. At the same time, stopped mentioning Michael. The only one to publicly speak about him was his twin young sister, Mary Rockefeller. In a book about her brother's death, Mary recounted that their mother, Mary Clark, forbade them from mourning their unfortunate brother, and she herself refused to grieve for him. However, according to writer Paul Toohey, she quietly hired a private investigator in 1979 to investigate whether her son was still alive or had died. This private investigator went to the territory of the Asmat people, exchanged a boat engine for 3 skulls that the tribe claimed belonged to 3 rare white men they had captured. Then, the detective brought the 3 skulls back to New York with the assurance that one of them belonged to Michael, and received a $250,000 reward. In 2014, Carl Hoffman, a journalist working for National Geographic, uncovered part of the truth about Michael Rockefeller's death. According to Carl Hoffman, 2 Dutch missionaries living on the island who spoke Asmat reported to the Dutch police that they had heard local people talking about the time they killed and ate Michael. The Dutch police immediately investigated and after a year, concluded that Michael had been killed by the islanders, and even found a skull box that they believed belonged to Michael. All reports on this case were stamped confidential, and the police decided not to investigate further. Hoffman believes that the Dutch government kept this secret because in 1962, they lost half of the island to Indonesia, and if the Dutch government couldn't manage the local people, they would surely lose the entire island. Hoffman personally went to the Asmat Island and claimed to be a journalist wanting to document the customs of the people. His interpreter happened to overhear the locals warning each other not to mention the past when they killed a white man in front of Hoffman for fear of retaliation. Urged by Hoffman, the interpreter inquired further and learned that Michael was killed because the villagers wanted revenge against the Dutch for intervening in a battle between 2 villages on the island and killing 4 tribal leaders in 1957, 3 years before Michael's first visit there. Michael washed ashore in a fateful storm, but unfortunately he encountered the relatives of those 4 leaders, who mistook him for Dutch and were furious. He was quickly captured again and was sacrificed. The Asmat people were afraid of retaliation because after Michael was killed, the entire village suffered from a terrible epidemic, causing many deaths, which they believed was retribution. Mr. Hoffman managed to capture footage, recorded their plea not to disclose what he had learned, and quickly left the island thereafter. Nelson's Primitive Art Museum was closed in 1974, and the Rockefeller family never returned to the island where Michael lost his life again. And this is Creep Factor. Thank you for taking the time to watch the entire video. And if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more